What's going on? Welcome back to the channel. Today we're going to talk to you about SoFi. I want to go over some of the data points, what really moved it, and go over everything else that you need to know. But first, make sure to hit that thumbs up. And with that, let's get right to it. So SoFi did go up 8.06%. Absolutely kick-ass day. 27.06 the low, 28.93 the high, and a lot of volume. So 71.4 million shares being traded, 69 is the average. So even though the broader market did really move higher, most stocks didn't experience that heavy of volume. So it really does stand out that institutions are paying attention to SoFi. So good stuff for that. There wasn't really any news associated to SoFi, so no press releases or any SEC filings. One thing that has a lot of people speculating on what caused this, because SoFi, for the most part, was kind of minding its own business, started to consolidate a little bit with the broader market. Then out of nowhere, it just went up like crazy. And you can see just the crazy amount of volume during that time frame. And today, the hot topic was just AWS. And so the outage caused a lot of issues in some sectors. And one thing that SoFi investors had a field day over is Robinhood was down. So this is another just temporary win for SoFi, a little bit of a loss for Robinhood. Fun competition back and forth, no hate against either of them. But nonetheless, though, a lot of people said that it was because of Robinhood being down. That is what caused this to go higher. And that actually isn't accurate, only because if you compare, for instance, SoFi and Robinhood, they both went up at the exact same time. And there wasn't any news, as far as I'm aware, nor any articles or anything to really justify this. At the time, there was some kind of news about Canadian banks and how they're expanding and blah, 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 and how potentially Canada will be wanting to cut rates. I don't know if indirectly that is what caused maybe some FOMO, because in case you guys haven't really caught on, especially in like 2024, while everyone was raising rates, Canada was always one step ahead of the States. Obviously, very small in comparison, but they always, I guess, just the timing of the meetings, Canada always ended up raising the rates earlier, and they are the ones that started to cut. So even most recently, I think Canada's done, was it 3 or 4 cuts? This is where people kind of saw, hey, Canada's cutting again. That does mean that the states are going to be cutting. It might be a little bit far-fetched, but potentially that is maybe why SoFi and Robinhood did go higher. You had Webull not really participating, so it was solely, well, it kind of moved up a little bit at that stage. Webull did its own thing for the rest of the day, but definitely SoFi stood out. One thing to take note of, though, is shorts. So I'll kind of go over that. Shorts did return 1.37 million shares. 9.37% of the free floats being shorted, works out to be 110.26 million shares overall are being shorted. DTC still sitting at 1.6 days, signaling that shorts are still very overextended. And so DTC does factor in the average volume for SoFi in comparison to number of shares being shorted. But interestingly enough, you do see shorts just randomly drop. They returned about, give or take, 8 million shares at that stage. So leading into that kind of time frame, they were increasing quite a lot. So again, the real question is, I don't know if anyone has some insight, but as far as what I can see, all the information that I use, so Seeking Alpha, use various other platforms, nothing as far as news to justify this and really spook shorts. So shorts honestly did cause this. But again, the real question is, why? I'm not really sure. So let me know your thoughts on that. When it comes down to the options data, this isn't fully complete, only because, as you can see at the very bottom, AWS issues, I guess, even affects unusual whales through the options. So from what we can have, I guess the first half of the day, we had 28 million in calls, 5.3 in puts, 54% of all the options being done were bullish in nature. From this, again, half the day, you see a consensus for it to be roughly around that 28.50 to 29. So good amount of optimism still on the table. Bears are anticipating for it to be sub 25. So I'm not really sure where they're getting the 25 from, unless it's maybe correlated with some big company kind of missing on their earnings or something along those lines. Aside from that though, like I said at the very beginning, there are some very interesting transactions I do want to share with you. So these are some of the transactions occurring on the secondary market. So 49.4, 15.1, 4.3, 4.09, 3.9, a lot of big transactions right here. So very active stuff. And then over and above that, these are some of the transactions occurring on the dark pool. So this one happened about 9 minutes after the market did close, and that was for $194.5 million, 6.7 or just over that million shares. So crazy stuff. Again, a lot of very questionable things. I get it. SoFi always has FOMO leading into the earnings, but something or someone or some news did spook shorts. Maybe what I mentioned about Canada might be a little bit far-fetched, but still there had to have been something that did come out. Probably by probably tonight or something, we'll see some actual articles, because even looking right over here, some of the trending articles, nothing really crazy, just a lot of optimism associated to earnings, inflation data. So that is coming out on Friday, and then nothing really crazy that I can see. So let me know your thoughts on potentially why institutions would be really loading the boat. But 194.5 million definitely does stand out. With it closing at 28.68, it was able to successfully get above this R1. And so 28.40 is going to be a strong support. So just kind of watch for that. And then aside from that, though, you have 27.12. It blew past that like it was nothing. So that's good stuff. 29.19 and then 30.46 is going to be the next strong target / resistance points. There hasn't been any new analyst ratings, so you can kind of see that right over here. So last one was done 6 days ago. It was KBW and a sell. Aside from that, leading into today, we already knew that the technicals were showing more of a W kind of breakout. And so we kind of bounced off that 50 once, twice, and now the third time. And so we kind of knew that today was going to really push higher. This is why even on my video, I think it was on over the weekend, I did mention that we'd probably be seeing that $28.50 to $29 range. And conveniently, that is exactly where we did land. So this is why I always like to follow the data. Don't get so emotionally invested in all the other fun jazz. So I think going into today, we kind of knew that things were going to really move higher. Looking at the market position, you see all the willing sellers just went poof. So there's a lot of optimism behind the scenes with SoFi, especially comparing it to Friday. Aside from that, though, it's above that 10-day moving average, so kind of showing that there's a lot of good momentum. Stochastic RSI is somewhat neutral, so it's not really overbought nor oversold. So big things definitely are going to be coming. You can see from the trade overview and the flow, the algos were a little bit more active, but of course, I think most of it did come from institutions on the secondary market as well as dark pool. So shorts did return 1.3 million. You saw some people posting online saying that we were having like a crazy squeeze. That wasn't fully accurate. You did see some shorts just clearly mitigating some risk, but as far as if I see SoFi as a squeeze play, similar to what happened with Beyond Meat, where it went up like 100+%, I don't ever see SoFi being that case, unless there is like a very big acquisition that they have to announce. That maybe would prompt a squeeze, but I think if they just put out the regular news, even crypto, that won't really be enough to really spook shorts where they return like a good 50-60% of overall all their positions. So nonetheless, let me know your thoughts on SoFi. One thing that I've always stated though is take the time to research options. I know from the comments, a lot of people already do a lot of options, but for instance, if you realistically do feel that SoFi is going to go to, let's say, $35, just throwing that out there by March, that technically is a 22% increase in the common stock. But if you buy, for instance, a long call, that's a 43.82% return on risk. So if you do believe in upside for SoFi, or even throwing it out there, if you believe that it's going to go back down to 18, you can make some pretty good money with options, either direction. So take the time to research options. I know it's somewhat scary, a lot of different moving parts, a lot of numbers, but once you do get the grasp of options, you can make a lot of extra money. So Let me know your thoughts on SoFi. Don't forget to hit that thumbs up and subscribe. I always greatly appreciate that. And then one final thing, pop over to my Patreon if you're looking for some solid buy signals on stocks, options, crypto. Put out daily day trades, numerous swing trades. Worthwhile to pop over there and check that out. With all that said, appreciate all of you watching.